So if you remember last week, we did the feature on this 70 Satellite convertible, and it's here because the owner has had a hard time getting it running. He tinkers around, but he's not a mechanic, and he's changed a lot of parts. So he's had it running, but it ran really badly, and then the last time he tried it, it wouldn't run at all. So that's why it's here. And now we're going to figure out what is going on with this car, because he's changed a lot of stuff. Now, just looking around here, it's got a new alternator, it's got a new regulator, it's got a new ballast resistor, it's got a new carburetor, a new fuel filter, and this distributor is new, and I noticed he's put, this is like the third or the fourth distributor that he's had in here. So the problem he's complaining about is that before it came to this no start thing, where the car doesn't want to start, was that it would run rough, it would only run for a couple of minutes, it would die, and then he wouldn't be able to restart it. So, I cheated a little bit. Before we brought the camera out here, I went and checked different things, and I already have an idea what's going on with it, but I'm going to bring you up to speed to where we are now. So the first things first, he dropped this new distributor in here. It's a points distributor. It's the one that belongs in the car. So I've already checked the gap. I'm suspecting a possible bad condenser. But I checked the gap on the points, 17 thousandths, so we're good to go there. I noted it's getting a spark because I cranked it with the distributor, with the coil wire off, and I've got a spark. So in the process of cranking it, I saw fuel came up into the filter, so we know we've got fuel coming up to the carburetor. And I plugged the coil wire in, and the very first thing it did, I went to crank it, and it went. So I'm going to show you that right now. I haven't disturbed anything from the way he brought the car in. So I'm going to turn the ignition on, and I'm going to jump out the starter relay from under the hood. So now, if you're working on a Chrysler product from this era, and you want to crank it, you want to start it from under the hood, you just turn the ignition to the on position, and then you jump out the starter relay. There's the big post on the starter relay and the small post. And if you jump between these two with a screwdriver or a wrench, whatever, you get the engine to crank, and providing that the ignition circuit is good and the key is getting power and all of that, when you crank it from here, it'll start. If you're dealing with a General Motors, or if you're dealing with a Ford product, you've got the solenoid that's always mounted on the shock tower or right in that area up front on the other side. You jump out the two posts on that. If you're dealing with a GM car that has the starter wire or the relay is actually mounted on the starter itself, then you need like a remote start button. They're cheap, they're all over the place, but that's the only way you can crank from under the hood. When you're trying to do this type of work, being able to spin the motor and start the motor from under the hood is like really important. It saves a lot of time and a lot of trouble. So let me show you what I've come across here. The carburetor's got gasoline in it. I'm going to turn the ignition on. Give it a couple of pumps, and we'll crank it from right here. Alright, so now I'm getting nothing. You hear the way it's kicking back? That's telling me the ignition timing is too far advanced. So if it was too far retarded, you'd really get nothing. There'd be no reaction. Or possibly it backfired through the carburetor. But instead, as it's cranking, as it's spinning, when it goes to light, when it goes to start, it's kicking back. That's that arc sound that you're hearing. I don't want to duplicate, I don't want to do it anymore because it can damage the starter. It can actually hurt the engine. Because what's happening is the ignition timing is so far advanced, it's lighting the mixture with the piston so far down the hole that it actually fights back against the starter. So I'm going to retard the timing. Let me go to the other side, get a grip on this. Square puddle out of the way. It's tight, but not too tight. I should have grabbed a wrench and just loosened it. Okay, let's try that. Oof. Okay, the timing is still way too far advanced. Let's back this thing off a little more. That's about as far back as I can move the distributor. It's running now, but it's definitely too far advanced. Still. I just shut the motor by unplugging the ballast resistor for a second. Alright, so I cannot retard the distributor anymore. The vacuum advanced canister is just about against the firewall. So what I got to do now is, there's two ways you could do this. I could pull the distributor out and rotate the drive, the oil pump drive, one tooth over. That's one way to do it. Or I could just take all of the wires on the cap and move them over one, and that'll put them in the position they're in now, but with the vacuum advanced canister further forward. So that's what I'm going to do. So start here. Come on, where'd that wire go? Alright, so now I'm going to pull the distributor like in the direction of advance. Alright, let's see how that works out. sounds good. We gotta up the idle a little bit. They got a problem right here. All right. So we got the timing, we got the wires oriented on the cap where we've got the timing where it needs to be more or less. Still have to put a timing light on it at this point to get the timing straight. But I've got fuel leaking out the top of this carburetor. So this carburetor here is one of the Chinese knockoff BBDs. Let's see. So if we've got fuel coming out of here, so this is the accelerator pump, and this little washer here, can you come in closer? This little washer-like thing just covers the top of the carburetor, so it's not like hermetically sealed or anything like that. And we've got fuel coming out of here. So that means one of two possibilities. The needle and seat isn't closing off the fuel the way it's supposed to, or the floats are misadjusted. So what we're going to do here now is we're going to pop the top of this carburetor off. Now, one of the nice things about the BBD carburetor, it's one of my favorite carburetors, is that you can actually take the top of the carburetor off on these things and watch the engine run, because it'll run without the top, and you can watch the float bowl and the fuel coming into it and all of that. And if there is a needle and seat adjustment to be made, very easy to make, and if you've got to change the needle and seat, you don't even have to go into the carburetor on these. The needle and seat assembly actually screws right into the front of the float bowl. And I'm going to say, like, needle and seat issues probably account for like 75% of the overall carburetor problems you come across. So like I said, these things are like just insanely easy to work with. So let me see. I gotta put my glasses on, get a small pair of pliers so I could pull these little clips out, and we'll undo the top of the carburetor. I'll be right back. All right, so I don't want to get too into the specifics of the BBD carburetor, because this isn't supposed to be like a tutorial on BBD carburetors, but really just representative of getting one of these older cars running that doesn't run. But this is what we have, so I'll go through it. So the first thing we want to do is pull off all of the linkage bits. So that's this is the high idle for when the choke is open and close. This tells the high idle cam to speed up the idle and whatnot. This is the accelerator pump lever. I put these little clamps someplace where they're not clips, where they're not going to get disturbed. We'll pull that off, and then we got the choke on the other side. Pop that off. Put this with our, okay, and now let's knock the top of this thing off. Okay, no lie, right? You can actually feel the substandardness of the screws as you they actually have a gritty feel. Yeah, right there. It's like you can feel it's not. Look, they sell these things for like 80 bucks. So I guess you get what you pay for. I mean, having dealt with 1,000 of these things over the years, it's a pretty faithful reproduction from what I could see. vacuum line back here would pop off, choke pull off. Or we could just pop that out of the way. There we go. All right. So I'm going to crank this thing. I've got the ballast resistor disconnected so there's no ignition. And I'm going to crank this thing and watch and see what happens with the fuel level. All right. Now it looks like the floats are at the right height, but you see the fuel level coming up here now. Right there, right at the top. So we know that it's not a float problem. The floats are where they're supposed to be. So that means that we've got something in the needle and seat assembly. All right, so we got on these carburetors, the needle and seat is a 9/16 or a 14 millimeter. Fuel line is a 1/2 inch. You don't need line wrenches, but when you go to break these, just like that, you get like that, and they come right off. And this right here is the needle and seat assembly. I haven't seen one quite like that. That's the actual needle. Now I'm looking down into the seat to see if there's any metal or rubber or anything like that. I don't see anything. That is an unusual end for it though. Yeah, I'm not finding anything. All right, so I'm going to just going to screw this back in and see what it does. Let's crank it. All right, so we're not coming up above the level of floats anymore. Okay, now I didn't find anything in a needle and seat when I looked for it, but it's functioning the way it's supposed to right now. The floats have come up. The lever has pushed against the needle assembly, and it's not overflowing the way it was. Which means that just during the course of undoing it and redoing it, it must have been a very tiny piece of rubber or rust or metal shaving, or I don't know, but it's not doing it anymore. So, and this will happen, where you're not going to be able to actually find the thing that it was. Sometimes it's just that small. But whatever it was, we dislodged it, and it's no longer trying to overflow the carburetor. That's also, a lot of times when you'll get these that are like that, they're overflowing the top, and you take a wrench and you just tap it a few times like that, and it'll dislodge. Like I said, it only takes a tiny, 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 tiny piece stuck between a needle and seat to make it overflow like that. And just by tapping them sometimes, you can dislodge it, and you're good as new. So, which is something I actually should have tried before I went and took the top of the carburetor off, but I'm not really thinking in mechanic mode right now. I'm thinking in YouTuber mode. It's a weird thing I do. It's a very weird thing I do. So, with that, I think what we're going to do is we'll put the top of the carburetor back on, fire it up, and see what we got. You're going to be editing this part.
Obviously.
All right, so let's see if this thing will start. There's our ballast resistor wire. Okay, ballast resistor's back in. So far, so good. We got it. Now it's starting to really smooth out now. I guess the plugs were dirty. And it's getting a little heat in it now too. All right, I believe we have mission accomplished here. So here's where we're at with this. The timing is just set by, really, just roughly by ear. So I'm going to put a timing light on this thing. I've got to confirm that the timing marks are all right. After the engine warms up, I got the timing set and the engine's all warmed up, then I'll adjust the carburetor. I'm going to neaten up these plug wires a little bit. It's a little bit like a zoo here. And we take this thing for a road test. Unfortunately, today is not the day to be taking a convertible out for a cruise. So we'll do that tomorrow. But other than that, I mean, this thing looks really good. It sounds good, runs good. I think it was just, you know, I don't know what led to the point that it is now, but we won't really know for sure until we put a couple of miles on it and put it through its paces. But I'm confident right now that we've got the major bugs worked out. There might be smaller things. Now, also looking at the gas filter, I see that the fuel that's in there is just pure, clean, beautiful. I don't see any rust, sediment, or any type of discoloration. Whenever there is a needle and seat issue, I always suspect the rubber hoses on the outlet side of the filter. So this one here has about a 3-inch coupler. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that also. I'm going to put a fresh piece of rubber on there. And I'm also going to bend this line up. You see the way this fuel line comes in? It's all like, it's scattered out of the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bend this so that it meets the filter directly, and there really won't be any rubber that the fuel has to pass through to go from the filter to the metal line. So the metal line will just be a coupler. I guess it's just in case it deteriorates over time, which is a common thing with like ethanol gasoline and the chintzy rubber that's used today. So we want to eliminate as many sections of rubber that the fuel has to pass through as possible. So getting that line bent so that it butts right up against the filter, and then it's just that little coupler of rubber. And I'm suspecting that is what must have caused this. Little tiny piece of rubber will get in there between the needle and seat, and that'll wreck your day. So that's it for now. I'll go around on heating everything up, make all of the settings and adjustments, and tomorrow we'll take this thing for a nice road test. All right, that's it. I hope you guys got something out of that, and I'll see you tomorrow.